three questions because who formulated them aren't here. And I will go now direct to question 12, which was formulated by Alexandre.
So, hello, Professor Benkler. I'm Abdu, Alexandre Abdu, and during our discussions here, some points we discussed in one of the sessions. The argument came up to make a parallel on this discussion of peer production and the description of the emergence of the public sphere in, let's say, theoretical or philosophical point by Habermas and this line of thought. And in the midst of that, the idea came up, but I was questioning myself to which extent we are talking about the production of information, and the production of information shares lots of qualities with the production of political deliberation in a society. So, and by that I don't mean so you have all this part of politics in your book, but it's mostly let's say, I saw a seminar by a French guy a while ago. He framed it, I think, nicely. It's kind of a counter politics. It's like it's surveillance and vigilance over government and corporations, and it's not politics in the sense of the people participating in a debate, in a level debate, in a let's say democratic, all equal, not all equal, but directly participating in an informed debate on the destination of them collectively, in their collective choices. So this leads to, let's say, participatory democracy talk, right? The things relating to participatory democracy. And one of maybe some of the problems with talking and let's say not theorizing, but putting in practice participatory democracy is that it's very difficult to not only to change a political system, but to predict its outcomes, because it was a strange form of organization that depended exactly on diverse motives, on diverse inputs, and depended on social relations. So it was difficult to theorize and to establish a basis for making a convincing argument and for establishing practices, effective and proven practices of participatory deliberation. And on the other hand, now we have this peer production phenomena called commons-based peer production, which shares lots of things in common with the political doing politics, and it has the advantage that it doesn't depend the lives of lots of people. It's like you can try things there. You can, like, Linux, open source software emerged by people auto-organizing on specific aspects of production of specific goods, and so we now have this real systems, working systems with effective practices that we know they work, and we can. Do you think so? The question is, like, it's two questions. First, in which terms do you see it as which could be or could not be the fundamental difference between production of information goods and production of political deliberation? And given these differences, what can we learn, and can we learn from the current practices of social production to modify our political system so that we don't only have this counter politics where we have the citizens surveilling the government and the consumers surveilling the companies, but actually having just like in the market we had the social production being incorporated into the market. Can the social production of is it possible that there be a more networked social production of deliberation that could propose different kinds of democracies or different political systems? So that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, this is a very hard and interesting question, and I just came from a conference at Princeton last week that was mostly political scientists and some communications theorists, and very much around this question. very much around this question. It's certainly one that I am thinking about and writing about, or working toward writing about. And I don't think that it's a solved question at all. So I can say a few words about the directions in which I'm thinking about this, but the truth is I think this is a really difficult question. So to begin, there are two very distinct and different kinds of potential problems with thinking about public participation in democracy and its relationship to peer production and social production. The first, which is closer to the position I took in the book, is that we need, the basic economics are there to make it possible. Right? The basic economics of building platforms that allow people to participate in deliberative processes are there. We might need, for example, to restructure government processes to bring people into deliberative context much more often, much more directly. So, for example, if you are interested in education, going back to the question earlier, building a government process that doesn't locate sole authority in a minister of education or in a local state or area education ministry, but instead devolves the education closer to where students and parents are. And perhaps at the level of high school and certainly beyond that, actually building processes that allow people to participate locally. The question then becomes, has the technological setting and the ability to participate, but not all the time, brought us to a stage where we can actually have people participate in structuring the educational system without constantly having to be mobilized, right? Part of the problem that we saw with efforts at more engaged communes and socialist systems was that it required such a level of mobilization and so much time that at the end of the day you only had a relatively small number of people controlling, and that ends up pushing toward control by an internal elite clique, which doesn't actually lead to the same kind of participatory system that you want. So the question is, can we build interfaces that will allow people in relatively brief interactions to participate on an ongoing basis? And then can we use government processes? Can we adapt government processes so that people are brought into deliberation more often? So that's one style of question, and I'm doing a little bit of work on trying to see if we have examples of where citizens can actually participate in that form. And I have to say that I haven't found very good ones. So that's a little bit disheartening. And it's related to the second question, which is the ambition we have for democracy is that it line up nicely with our commitment to egalitarianism. So we have, in some senses, democracies try to mediate the tensions between different kinds of commitments. A commitment to autonomy, which suggests that I don't want to force you to be mobilized to anything. A commitment to participation and democracy and deliberation and real quality participation. And a commitment to egalitarianism, which is that whatever it is that I do, both the autonomy and the participation, apply equally to everyone. Now, the problem, as it turns out, is that many people aren't that interested in politics. And many people don't care to be mobilized. And so one of the things we see on the blogosphere, for example, in the last year and a half worth of studies, is that the number of people who are really participating is actually not that huge. not in, I'll take that back. It's huge by comparison to the number of people who produced news. It's tiny by comparison to the number of people in society. And then we have to sort of think, well, do we care about deliberation? Yes. Do we care about not forcing people to participate because we care about autonomy? Yes. Are we willing to give up on egalitarianism for a little bit? Or just ease up on egalitarianism? Are we willing to say our theoretical model of democracy treats engaged participation by 2 million out of 300 million as really attractive participatory democracy? Because these are the 2 million who selected in. And anybody can select in. Nobody's being prohibited from. Unlike with the mass media, where you had no choice to participate unless you went through the editor. Nothing prevents you from deciding, this is an issue where I want to participate, I will select in, and this is an issue that I don't care, I'll select out. So once I've set up a system, I'll predictably have 2 million people participating, and let's say another 100,000 or so who will flow in and out. And then we have the question, is this attractive? It certainly is consistent with autonomy. Nobody's being forced to participate. It's certainly more attractive than we used to have. Nobody has to ask for permission to participate. We have a much, much more open and robust and participatory system for people who choose to participate. We have practices of, here, see for yourself, judge for yourself. If you disagree with me, let's disagree. We have a much more flat accepted of whoever is inside, a lot less hierarchical in terms of the practices of debate online, that make them more deliberative and less just a question of, I've identified a mistake or I'm just voting. But it requires time, it requires effort, and what we're seeing currently as the practice is that a relatively small number of people are participating. And so, in this regard, I think this presents a real challenge for democratic theory. I don't know where I come on it yet. I certainly, at the time that I was writing the book, my thought was on much larger scales, much more on the order of what happens if 40 to 100 million people are able to really communicate on things. And I'm not sure I'm willing to give up on that entirely. It is still the case that you find a meet-up group of small dog owners coming together and deciding we want a playground for our small dogs and acting in the local municipal government to get the small dog playground. Do I care about small dog playgrounds? No. Do I think that's major political achievement? No. Do they think that it's major political achievement? Yes. And in a democracy, does the fact that they move through municipalities to do that, does that matter as a way that suddenly says, well, actually, when you get 40 million people to participate, it turns out there are lots of people who care about things like small dog playgrounds? Yes. Is that attractive enough for democratic theory? I don't know. And so if we're really talking about big politics, if we're talking about politics that ends up in electoral politics, if we're talking about politics that ends up in change of corporate practices, in change of social practices, in redistribution and in decisions on education, core decisions on welfare and justice, then I at least think we need to entertain the possibility that the big achievement will end up having moved us from an elite of a few tens of thousands in a society of 300 million to 2 or 3 million in a society of 300 million. That's an order of magnitude more participation, but still 2 orders of magnitude less than what egalitarian would want us to get to. And I come back to this moderate optimism. It's better than it used to be. Not purely on watchdog function, also on deliberation and on the practice of being able to work through problems. But it is very far from utopia.
Thank you very much, very much. Yochai, we are kind of running out of time, and we especially have to consider that you didn't have lunch. You are sacrificing your lunchtime. We thank you for that. But just to not to skip completely the interaction with the audience, we have a person which I really don't know. Okay, I don't.